Bien, buenos días a todos y gracias por acudir a esta conferencia del embajador Ahmet Usumcu, que es el director general de la OPA, organismo que ha sido reconocido con el Premio Nobel recientemente. Pero más allá de esos reconocimientos, entendemos que la labor que desarrollan es fundamental. Entendemos que el desarme es una necesidad vital para la humanidad y, en particular, el desarme químico, parte de ese desarme también vital, sobre todo en la medida en que ese armamento químico, esas tecnologías son muchas veces muy fáciles de desarrollar, de difundir, y por lo tanto son no solo un peligro militar, sino también un peligro frente al terrorismo y otras amenazas que podamos tener. Pero vamos, sin querer extenderme más, voy a hacer la palabra al profesor Roberto Martínez, que va a hacer la presentación del conferenciante y de este acto. Roberto.
Of the OPCW, is an honor and a great pleasure to be here today to present His Excellent Ambassador Ahmet Umtutu, current Director General of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. Ambassador Umtutu was appointed for this position on December 2009 and appointed for a second term on December 2013. He is a career diplomat with a very vast experience in multilateral diplomacy. Thus, he has represented Turkey at the Council of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. He was deeply involved in the Chemical Disarmament Conference held in Geneva and was also Turkey's ambassador to Israel. However, a most important of all, Ambassador Umtutu received the Peace Nobel Prize in December 2013 on behalf of the OPCW. OPCW was awarded with the following for its extensive effort to eliminate chemical weapons. The presentation of the Director General of the OPCW will describe the chemical disarmament carried out in Syria during the OPCW mission. From my point of view, I think is one of the most important facts done by the OPCW since this organization was founded. I would like to note that having a speaker of this eminence is a very special treat for our university. Without further ado, I give you the floor, Ambassador. Thank you very much. Please.
Honorable Professor Carrillo, Rector of the University, Honorable Professor Gomez, Dean of Chemistry Faculty, distinguished guests, faculty and students, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure and a distinct honor to be able to address you here at Madrid's Complutense University, one of the oldest universities in Europe and a world-renowned center of academic excellence. Over the centuries, your alumni have included medical pioneers, distinguished playwrights, Nobel Prize winners, and prime ministers of Spain, but also members of the Scientific Advisory Board of our organization, which is composed of 25 members coming from different parts of the world, and among them, Professor Alvarez, the current member, and Dr. Sierra, the previous member of the Scientific Advisory Board of the OPCW. What connects these fine men and women is not just this august institution, but also their shared contribution to humanity in their respective fields of expertise. With this in mind, I would like to use this lecture to describe the OPCW's mission to use science in the service of humanity in the context of the challenges we face, both current and emerging. The OPCW acts as the guardian of the Chemical Weapons Convention, a comprehensive regime geared towards not only overseeing the destruction of chemical weapons, but also preventing their reemergence and fostering peaceful uses of chemistry. One of the biggest challenges for the Convention in the future will be to maintain its relevance and effectiveness in the face of new advances in science and technology, advances that could test its integrity and implementation. But let us first look back at the long journey we have traveled to establish a regime that has allowed our organization to record the achievements honored in 2013 by the Nobel Peace Prize Committee. On 22nd April, we will mark the 100th anniversary of the first large-scale use of chemical weapons near Ypres in Belgium during the First World War. On that day, a century ago, the German army released 170 tons of the chlorine gas against French Algerian troops, creating a veil of greenish-yellow mist which filled the lungs of 10,000 soldiers. Half of the men suffocated within 10 minutes of the gas reaching the front line. Those who survived were left blinded and blistered, going on to live broken lives. By the end of the First World War, chemical weapons used by both sides to the conflict had inflicted more than 1 million casualties. The widespread use of these weapons stands as one of the war's most haunting legacies, despite the prior ban against them in the form of the 1899 The Hague Convention. It prompted a push to devise a more binding norm against the use of chemical weapons by the 1925 Geneva Protocol this time. But while the Geneva Protocol prohibited use of chemical and biological weapons, it did not ban their possession and production. Nor, unfortunately, did it prevent chemical weapons from being used elsewhere. The place names of Halabja in Iraq and Sardasht in Iran have become synonymous with the human misery resulting from civilians being attacked with these heinous weapons in the 1980s. The impunity with which such attacks were perpetrated and their indiscriminate nature, especially in the Iraq War, finally rallied the international community to take decisive actions. It was against this backdrop, almost 100 years after the Hague Convention, that a comprehensive global ban against chemical weapons came into being. Following long and arduous negotiations in Geneva, the Chemical Weapons Convention was concluded in 1992, entering into force in 1997. More than 2 decades since it was concluded, the Convention remains the most far-reaching disarmament and non-proliferation treaty in the history of multilateral arms control. To this day, it is the only international treaty that not only bans an entire class of weapons of mass destruction, but also has the authority and mechanisms for policing this ban through international verification. The Convention is comprehensive. This means that it prohibits not only the use of chemical weapons, but also their development, production, stockpiling, transfer, and retention, something that was missing in the chemical disarmament treaties preceding it. The Convention is also non-discriminatory, committing all of its member states without exception to its prohibitions and obligations. Under its provisions, there can never be any chemical weapon states. Those very few member states that have chemical weapons must destroy them, and those that do not have them, must commit never to acquire them. Most importantly, in contributing to the Convention's unique success, all members are subject to an international verification regime administered by the Convention's implementing body, the OPCW. This verification regime comprises regular inspection of chemical industry to ensure its production is exclusively for peaceful purposes. It also includes a challenge inspection mechanism. Any member can call for investigation of another member on the basis of well-founded concerns over compliance. Guided by the Convention, the OPCW also works closely with its member states as well as industry and scientists around the world to protect against chemical attacks and to promote peaceful uses of chemistry. It is these provisions that have made the Chemical Weapons Convention the remarkable success that is today. In only 17 years, the OPCW has seen its membership grow to 190 member states. Over this time, our organization has verified the destruction of some 87% of all declared chemical weapons, and we have conducted over 2,500 inspections of industrial facilities in more than 80 countries. It is with great pride that I can say that it is this record of tangible achievement that earned the OPCW the Nobel Peace Prize. Most recently, the resilience of the Convention and the adaptability of the OPCW, the organization, were demonstrated during our organization's unprecedented mission to eliminate serious chemical weapons. Syria's accession to the Convention meant that there was no need for a specially mandated ad hoc arrangement to oversee the removal and destruction process. The extensive provisions of the Convention were more than ample and satisfactory for achieving serious chemical demilitarization. It is worth briefly recalling how this process unfolded. The gruesome sarin gas attack in the Damascus suburb of Ghouta in August 2013, together with the international outcry that followed, precipitated an extraordinary series of events. The framework agreement between Russia and the United States in Geneva paved the way for a historic decision by the OPCW's Executive Council on 27 September 2013 on an accelerated program for eliminating Syria's. As a measure of international community's resolve, this decision was endorsed that same day by unanimous adoption of UN Security Council Resolution 2118. It was a day of highly effective diplomacy in response to what only weeks before was a completely unforeseen situation. For its part, the OPCW rose to the challenge. Our first team of inspectors arrived in Damascus within 4 days after the Executive Council decision was adopted, and the OPCW UN Joint Mission in Syria was formally established on 16 October. Little more than a year after the Executive Council decision, all declared chemical weapons were removed from Syria, and 98% of them have since been destroyed, including all sulfur mustard and nerve agent precursors. The OPCW is still pursuing its mandate in further clarifying Syria's declaration and expediting destruction of a few remaining chemical weapon production facilities. We are also continuing to follow up allegations of chlorine gas attacks in Syria through the work of the fact-finding mission, which I established last April and which has so far issued 3 reports. In brief, our work in Syria has been a remarkable achievement by any measure, let alone in the context of such challenging circumstances and compressed timeframes. The mission has also stretched us to new limits. Quite apart from demanding a great deal of professional commitment and personal courage on the part of personnel deployed in Syria, it required flexibility and innovation on the part of our member states. Some 35 of them provided in-kind and financial assistance in what has been an unprecedented international effort. This includes the vital support of the United Nations in our joint mission, in dealing with daunting logistical and security challenges. And by working together, we were also able to overcome obstacles by using innovative technological solutions. These included facilitating sea-based destruction through the installation of 2 field deployable hydrolysis systems on board the Cape Ray, the US vessel, that hosted neutralization operations for nearly 2 months at sea. We also pioneered private-public partnerships by engaging commercial companies in destruction operations through a tender process. From all this, we can draw a very simple conclusion. Multilateral solutions are enduring where they can draw on an effective and comprehensive instrument and on the political will of the international community. Ladies and gentlemen, the confirmed use of chemical weapons in Syria in 2013 reminded us that we need to extend our reach if our success is to be complete. That's why one of our most immediate challenges, one that flows directly from Syria's accession to the Chemical Weapons Convention, is to persuade the 6 countries that still remain outside the Convention to join it, without delay and without conditions. These countries are Angola, Egypt, Israel, Myanmar, North Korea, and South Sudan. We have been informed, though, 2 days ago that the Parliament in Myanmar approved the legislation with regard to their accession to the Chemical Weapons Convention. This is a very positive development. We expect them to become a new member sometime at the end of February. No person should be subject to chemical attacks or the threat of such attacks, and no country should be allowed to leave any doubt in anyone's mind about reserving the right to hold and use such weapons, weapons that are universally regarded as a taboo now. The international community's reaction to the chemical attacks in Syria has only served to reaffirm its unity on this principle. We cannot, therefore, rest until all chemical weapons have been destroyed and all countries of the world are party to the Convention in both letter and spirit. As we fast approach the long-cherished goal of global chemical disarmament, it's important that we position ourselves to ensure that we can make our gains permanent. This means adapting to a rapidly changing strategic environment and seizing the opportunity not only to broaden adherence to the Convention, but also to guard against the re-emergence of chemical weapons. Our success in achieving this objective will depend in large part on how well we get to grips with scientific and technological progress. In this regard, it's my strong view that progress in law and ethics must keep pace with advances in science. As a global civilization, we have reached great heights of scientific accomplishment, but we have also acquired the science to invent ever more destructive weapons and technologies. This goes to the heart of the challenge facing the OPCW. What we are more often dealing with are materials and technologies that have multiple uses. They can render great benefits for human and economic development, but they can also render great harm if misused. This dual-use dilemma goes to the very core of what makes our task so challenging. Given the sheer pace of the discovery of new chemical substances, we need to rethink our strategies. This means developing new synergies between governments and industry, scientists and civil society that can serve to advance the goals of the Convention. To supplement our monitoring and control measures, we need to create new proactive partnerships that promote responsible science. To this end, in a bottom-up approach, we at the OPCW are expanding our education and outreach efforts in relation to professional associations and universities. And we are working with our member states and their industry representatives to devise codes of ethics to prevent the misuse of science, as well as to find more effective ways of securing compliance with the Convention. Our message is clear. Scientists must have a very clear sense of their ethical obligations from the very beginning of their careers. It is vital that young scientists, including many of you here, understand the broader implications of your research, not only to be able to promote and implement it effectively, but to do so in a responsible way. Certainly, the challenges ahead are manifold, and we at the OPCW are very much focused on the need to readjust our priorities. As I have mentioned, this means gradually shifting our focus away from getting rid of existing weapons to preventing new ones from reappearing, a much harder task. Added to this is a changing strategic landscape. Industrial globalization, new advances in science and technology, and rapid progress in communications will all have a large impact on how we implement the Convention in years to come. For example, new improvements in chemical production technology will lead to new possibilities for small-scale production of chemicals. This will potentially present new verification challenges as the range of facilities capable of making and handling dual-use chemicals increases significantly. Likewise, the growing convergence of biology and chemistry could call into question the integrity of our current monitoring mechanisms. A far more difficult challenge, one that current global non-proliferation norms are ill-equipped for dealing with, is that posed by non-state actors. Several terrorist groups have made clear that they are trying to acquire weapons of mass destruction and that they would use them if they succeeded. In the case of chemical weapons, the dangers are very real, especially if we consider the threat posed by options for using conventional means to bring about a toxic chemical incident. The use of chlorine in Syria is a case in point. Amid this uncertain environment, our task must be to anticipate and address the impact that such challenges might have on our existing measures and to work to adapt them. This means turning many of these challenges into opportunities, especially in relation to our interface with technology. New technological developments can, for example, enhance methods of gathering, transmitting, and retrieving data which might help with monitoring and verification. This equally applies to new communication tools, as evidenced by the role that social media has recently played in bringing new sources of data to our attention. Ladies and gentlemen, as we prepare to celebrate the centenary of the chemical attacks in Ypres, we need to draw lessons not only from the tragic legacy of chemical warfare, but also from the political will that the world has drawn in creating a global norm against these heinous weapons. The Chemical Weapons Convention has stood the test of time in prohibiting the development, production, stockpiling, and use of chemical weapons. For it to continue to do, it is vital that we use our partnerships with policymakers, science, and students such as yourselves to ensure the Convention's ongoing relevance as advances in science and technology shape our future. These partnerships will remain a vital investment in contribution made by the Convention towards enhancing global peace and security. Our future, after all, will depend on our ability to uphold universal values as opposed to purely national interests. It will depend on our collective ability to harness science for the benefit of humanity. It is in this spirit, mindful of the approaching anniversary and hopeful for what we can achieve in the immediate future, that I urge each and every one of you to help us cross the finish line and consign chemical weapons to history forever. Thank you for your attention.
Gracias, embajador. Y para concluir este acto tiene la palabra el decano de la facultad.
Chancellor, Ambassador, authorities, faculty and university members and students and ladies and gentlemen, it has been a great pleasure and an honor to have here the Director General of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW, OPAC en español, Ambassador Ahmed Umzuzu. On behalf of all the chemistry faculty members, I would like to express to him our gratitude for choosing our faculty for this conference on the Syria mission and beyond, and express to him our full support for the outstanding work that the OPCW is developing on the global effort for chemical disarmament. I would like to add that it is a strength of our faculty and as a consequence of our university to have faculty professors as Roberto Martinez and Miguel Ángel Sierra as current and former members of the Scientific Advisory Board of the OPCW. Y por último, simplemente quería, con el permiso del rector, pues agradeceros vuestra asistencia a esta conferencia. Muchas gracias. ¿Hay alguien que quiera hacer alguna pregunta o algún comentario al embajador? El micrófono está aquí. Aquí.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, it would be a pleasure if students would make questions, but I would like to make one, if you don't mind. First of all, on behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation of Spain, I want to thank you, Rector Carrillo, on the panels of professors, and the Universidad Complutense for having organized this conference. We are delighted to have here Director General Umzuzu because of the great importance that OPCW has now in the international context. And we would like also to congratulate you, Ambassador Umzuzu, for the extraordinary work. You said remarkable, but I think it's more than that. Extraordinary work you have carried out, you and your team, during the past months and years, but especially concerning the process of disarmament of chemical weapons in Syria. It's a historic event, and also it's a great example of cooperation between OPCW and United Nations. It is absolutely remarkable, extraordinary. Paying attention to what Ambassador Umzuzu has said in his conference, or in his lecture, I would say that there are many issues, but one of them is the progress of science and technology, recent progress that makes easier for possible terrorists to have access to chemical agents. So our ministry, not Spain, but the whole of the international community supports your effort in order to have the commitment from the academia, university, professors, students, and also from the chemical industry, this commitment to work in the right way to avoid that this danger goes quicker and more present. So this is a commitment supported by the whole of the international community. But having said that, I have a question for Ambassador Umzuzu, if you are so kind. You mentioned in your speech about the future of OPCW in relation to terrorism, terrorist threats. I wonder, as Spain has a high profile in the international community concerning the non-proliferation issues, I wonder, Ambassador, how likely you see a new possible terrorist attack using chemical weapons? with the information you may have. I thank you.
Is it open? Thank you for the question. And in fact, there have been several reports we have seen over the past years as to possible, in fact, attempts to produce chemical weapons or to use toxic chemicals as a weapon by terrorist organization. Fortunately, the use was limited. Only one actually incident was reported by Iraq of use of chlorine by ISIS in Iraq against Iraqi soldiers. So far, there have been some reports as to use by different groups in also Syria, but these uses were limited. One example of the use of chemical weapons by an organization, terrorist organization, was seen in 1995 before the convention entered into force in Japan by a cult called Aum Shinrikyo. In fact, this group was able to produce sarin in a limited amount, but they used it in a subway, and 13 people were killed, 6,000 people were hospitalized, and they used the product in a very primitive way. So they put them in plastic bags, they punched them with their umbrellas, and they left the wagons in the subway, but still the damage was quite considerable, and it could be even worse. So we should be fully aware of such threats, but we don't want to publicize them further, but rather to raise them in closed meeting circles, and especially to those who are relevant and who may in fact support those countermeasures. As to the OPCW as an organization, in fact, what we are doing in this respect, we have a group which is called Open-Ended Working Group on Terrorism, which was established after 9/11 attacks. And the purpose is, in fact, to exchange views and to share practices, best practices in terms of countering possible chemical terrorist actions. And since Spain at the moment, in fact, is chairing 1540 committee within the UN Security Council, and 1540 committee, as you may know, is also dealing, in fact, with the prevention of access by non-state actors to weapons of mass destruction. Our organization is mentioned, in fact, in the resolution with regard to the establishment of the 1540 committee. I see great potential of further cooperation between the Spanish authorities and our organization to complement each other's efforts. OPCW, of course, does support, in general, the 1540 committee efforts. We participate in their meetings, and we send our experts, and vice versa. Since you mentioned Syria, if you allow me, I want to elaborate a little further what the organization has done since October 2013. As I said earlier in my statement, that the Russian Federation and the United States, in fact, have taken the lead as co-sponsors of this process. The use of sarin in one of the outskirts of Damascus was determined in August, and there was an increased pressure on Syria, and a military attack against Syria was possible at this stage because of the use of chemical weapons. And the Russian Federation, in fact, did convince the United States to undertake a new initiative and convinced the Syrians to get rid of their chemical weapons stocks, but also to join the convention, the organization. So that's what happened. In September, the decision was taken in Geneva between the two states. A month after that, on 14th October, Syria has become a party to the convention, a member of the organization, and our team, together with the UN support, started to work in Damascus in early October, and within 6-7 months, in fact, all stocks of chemical weapons declared by Syria were taken outside of the country. Some of them were destroyed on an American ship, others in commercial facilities outside of the country, transported by Norwegians and Danish vessels to different parts of Europe. So that's a unique undertaking in the history of the disarmament, not only chemical disarmament, but in general terms. So that's also a very successful precedent in terms of multinational undertaking and effective multilateralism. And several countries were very generous. Millions of euros were in fact provided to establish a fund which is still being used by our organization. But what we have seen is, most importantly, is that we had, as an organization, sufficient expertise and experience to deal and to carry out this job in very challenging circumstances, and the situation is obvious. This was a conflict zone, and our experts, in fact, had to go to remote areas in Syria, to stay in remote places with limited security support. But fortunately, they came back safe and sound. At the moment, this joint mission with the UN is over as of end of September. And since then, the OPCW took the lead with the support of a UN procurement agency. And we have a limited presence in Syria, in Damascus, but still delegations are going on and off. One team is in fact carrying out the declaration assessment, and the purpose is to make complete the Syrian declaration. Some state parties have certain questions and doubts about the completeness of the Syrian declaration, so we raise questions with the Syrians, we receive explanation, we report them to our Executive Council, and this process will probably continue in the coming months. And another team is dealing with the destruction of production facilities. So there are 12 production facilities in different parts of Syria, and they need to be destroyed, to be erased, in fact, to the ground, according to the provisions of the Convention. This is also quite a challenging undertaking. As to the completeness of the Syrian chemical arsenal, or declaration of the chemical arsenal, I should add that the estimates, in fact, before Syria joined the Convention were about 1,000 tons, and the Syrians declared 1,300 tons of sarin precursors, other VX precursors, and other sulfur mustard, and so on. And they also declared that they destroyed earlier some sulfur mustard in different places. So we are still not sure or cannot say yet that Syria has declared everything, but hopefully within the next few months we'll be able, in fact, to complete this process. In general, this in fact chemical weapons program was quite large in every standard. So if those weapons were used somewhere, in fact, they could create a lot of damage. So one should be aware of such threats. But as I said earlier, the existing stocks are being destroyed, We don't know whether those states which are not yet party, I mentioned their names, do possess chemical weapons or not. We will only know when once they will join the convention, hopefully soon, and then we will deal with their destruction. But before that, we don't want to speculate about their possession or not. So that's what I could say about Syria and terrorist, in fact, threat in general. And if there are other questions, of course, I would be pleased to answer.
Some more questions? No?
Thank you very much. My name is Fernando Borreda. I was employed by OPCW. I was chemical weapons inspector. I've been deploying chemical disarmaments in several sites, and well, I consider a great pleasure, and I would like to extend my appreciation to the Director General to come into the university to really promote the work of the OPCW in some environments that is not so well known. No? On the other side, I also think that is a great opportunity for the academia and the university to express their interest and their concern in, let's say, the illicit use of the science. You probably know better than me that has been prominent scientists like Franz Haber, the inventor of the ammonia, or the same Alfred Nobel, whose inventions has finished with wrong purposes. So after these reflections, my question maybe is more directed to the auditorium or to the board, so they think what the students, what the university, what the science, what the scientists can really do to prevent the ill use of the science. And this is basically my question, more directed to the board and the auditorium, so the Director General can hear what the university has in mind. Thank you very much.
I think the question is more addressed to me, but if not, I'll say Roberto. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Well, it's a very big problem, the dual use of the misuse of the chemistry. But I think this is not a problem of the chemistry, it's a problem of the persons. Chemistry has not a very good image, can be partially considered as a dirty science, but I think the problematic is in the person. Chemistry is, or thank the chemistry, we were here because all is chemistry. All is chemistry. Purification of this water, all is chemistry. Then the chemistry is the milestone of our life. The dual use of the misuse is only a very short tile of the chemistry.
Okay, as Roberto said, this is a really complicated problem. In fact, the UPAC and the OPCW developed a program to issue an ethical code for the people working in chemistry to sign before they get the degree. However, this is easy in medicine, but it's very complicated in chemistry. Because, for example, how do you say, I won't earn human life if you are going to work in a military industry as a chemist? So it is really complicated. issue. I think it's difficult to say, but my belief is something you have to develop during the years of formation at the universities. But to sign a ethical code, you have to exclude from this the military aspect of chemistry that is very, very, very strong. So we were working maybe for 2 years with the IUPAC, but in no way we couldn't say this is the code because we couldn't agree what to put in there, precisely because of the military aspect of the chemistry.
Okay.
Can I just say?
Of course.
I want just to take the opportunity to promote our organization. Of course, those who are interested among the audience can look at our website, opcw.org. But this is the Secretariat, in fact, which is one of the 3 organs of the organization, and tasked to oversee the implementation, to facilitate the implementation of the convention by all states parties, 190 of them. And this is quite a demanding task. We have 480 staff at the moment, coming from over 80 nationalities. We try to ensure, in fact, a harmonious working environment. People are coming from different cultures, which is quite normal. It's quite diverse. And among those 480, we have quite a large group of inspectors, whom I mentioned earlier, who were deployed in Syria. And they did an excellent job there, but also several other staff. The name of the organization is a little misleading. It gives the impression that we are only dealing with chemical weapons, whereas we have a lot of capacity building activities. We have fellowship programs. So in the future, we will pay more attention, in fact, to our partnership, as I said earlier, with the academia and promote our education and outreach activities further. So I encourage you, in fact, to show some more interest as chemists to the OPCW. And we look forward, in fact, to working with you, among others. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yo me sentaba en primera fila para evitar el frescador. Es que están por el centro. Están muy mal, están muy bien. Mira los escalones. No puedo.